Hello, everybody, and welcome to this latest in the ValuesJam guest session series. Todd, brilliant to have you here. And to kick off, please introduce yourself. Tell people who you are and about the great work that you do.
Thank you so much, Alan. It is really an honor to be here, Alan. I want to start off saying this. You are the spark that started the fire in me 10 years ago through this book. Um, uh, my name's Todd Wuestenberg. I am in Ames, Iowa, which is really a flyover state here in the United States. The work I do, actually, my current title is Chief Culture Officer. It is a title that I was asked or a seat to sit in 3 years ago in our organization. But going back to that 10-year mark with the values, I actually sat down with our owner and said, "Hey, we need to be more intentional with our culture. Let's define it. Let's not let it define us. Let us really take the initiative. Let's be real purposeful with it." And that's what started our passion with identifying what our core values in our organization. Ever since then, our core values is how we hire. It's how we do evaluations. We talk about it every day. It is the driving force in our organization, and I love it. I love it.
That's great to hear. And it's quite humbling, actually, you saying that that was the starting point, because I remember that book very well. And it was an accident. We didn't really have an intention to write a book, didn't know you're supposed to have a book agent, just wrote to three publishers, got two offers. That was the book. I've had three published subsequently and two more in the pipeline, despite the fact that I swore never to go beyond three. So it's been quite a journey. So thank you for that kind of reminder.
Well,
Now,
thank you.
now, Values Jam, here's the deck. And
All right.
what we're going to do is choose a card. It's always fascinating to see which card comes out. And I don't really believe that the world works like this, but sometimes the cards are like spookily appropriate, and it happens too often for there to
Yes.
be nothing in it. So we'll see. So, how many piles would you like me to make in front of me, Todd?
Uh, Alan, I like thinking in groups of three, so let's put them in three piles.
Yeah, three piles. They are going to be different size piles, and I've
That's
got
fine.
pile one on my left, pile three on my right. So which number pile?
Let's actually go right in the middle. Let's
Let's
take
go in
that
the
middle
middle.
pile. And now
Right.
do that again. Divide it in three again for me.
Oh, the middle pile in three again.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
Nobody's
just draw. Yeah.
nobody's done this before, which is great. You want the middle pile again?
And then just draw any card from the middle pile.
Okay. What about number three?
What about number three? Or do
Oh,
you, do you, do you feel a pull towards number three? Oh, because of my, yes, I see what you're saying.
and here we go.
Friendship.
Friendship. How about that?
Friendship. How about that? All right.
And here's the first question. What does friendship mean? And what does it look, feel, and sound like?
Oh, I love this question. What friendship means to me is that you have a connection with somebody where you have just similarities. You have same, and I'm going to use probably the word values a lot today, but you have same values, same outlook in life. You have a lot of similarities, but yet you're different. Obviously, you challenge each other. I think friendships are the kind that you could spend, have an absence from one another, but you're able to reconnect really quickly because of that bond that you have. It's shared experiences. Okay. Friendship is about shared experiences. And what that looks like, in fact, I got a great example for you, Alan. Great story. I have been with a group of men for a long period of time. We meet on a regular basis and we challenge each other. A phrase we like to use is iron sharpens iron. So we're constantly getting together on a weekly basis and we're sharpening one another. And one of the things we talk about is having a 2 a.m. friend. Okay, who is that person in your life that you can call at 2 a.m. if just something's going on? Okay, so this wasn't at 2 a.m. This was actually at 8:40 a.m. last Friday. I sent a text message to two of my friends. I said, "Hey, I need your thoughts and prayers. I just got a text message from our daughter's boyfriend. He wants to meet with me for lunch, and I knew what was coming because we had
Ooh,
this conversation. So I sent that to my good friend Kyle and my good friend Darren, and they immediately replied, "Hey, yeah, thoughts and prayers with you." And I think that's what friendship looks like.
okay. And so let me just respond to a couple of
Yeah,
things
yeah.
that you touched on. By the way, I love iron sharps iron, sharpens iron. I think that's very cool. You used the word bond actually, and that's what strikes me about friendship is that, and I think of bond in terms of glue. You know, it's this stickiness that you have.
Yes.
So friendship has a real stickiness, and exactly like you said, time doesn't seem to matter. And you've reminded me of a story. I worked for a guy when I was how old? In my mid 20s, I guess. And I was in the hospitality sector. He was an absolute taskmaster, Irish guy. To give you some ideas, so this was in the conference and event sector, and he would inspect the tables for a big dinner while the people were enjoying their cocktails before dinner, before they came into the main room, right? And if he spotted any blemish on glassware or cutlery or anything slightly out of place, and I'm not condoning this, he would pick up the corner of the tablecloth and carry on walking so that the table basically was messed up. And then he would explain to the guy whose table that was, you should have been more careful, get this right because they're coming in for dinner in like 5 minutes.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's a particular style of man management, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But anyway, I didn't see him for a couple of decades, and then we kind of connected and ended up meeting. And that story's come to mind because of what you said about that 20 years seemed to like just disappear. And we were together again, bonded. So love that use of the word. And then a couple of things that I don't think you mentioned, but what struck me when I was listening to you was that friendship is kind of warts and all, open and honest, and you just feel both ways that anything can be shared, not judged.
Yes.
Um, yeah, and anything goes. So those things.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely. You have to have that authenticity, that transparency with one another, because that's what builds trust, and friendship is built on trust.
yeah, absolutely. And you started on the more creative answer. So you explained what that looks like and you told that beautiful story. What about what does it feel like and what does it sound like?
Hmm. What it feels like. Obviously, it feels good, to know that you have somebody that, you can rely on, and also someone that can rely on you, so there's this reciprocating component to it, again, going back to that iron sharpens iron. So there's this reciprocating component that feels good, hey, this person can rely on me, I can rely on them, good times, bad times. You mentioned already, yeah, there's no judgment. So there's a little bit, I can be freer, I can be myself. I don't have to wear a mask of who I really am with this person. And so that's what it feels like. And what was the second part of that question?
And what does it sound like? So this could be a sound that comes to mind when you think of the word friendship.
You know what? It sounds like this. A high five. You see that, buddy, you give them a high five, or it might even be something a little bit softer. I mean, my wife is one of, my best friend. My wife's my best friend. It might just be a soft little kiss.
Yeah.
That's what it might sound like. So it can be loud or it can be soft. It all depends.
Yeah. So, so let me return then. So,
Okay.
for me, friendship, what it looks like is arms around each other. That kind of we're together. I guess it comes back to that bond thing.
Yeah.
Um, what it feels like is, I think we've probably used some of the words, so like non-judgmental and all the rest. But I think the best word we've used so far is trust, but an absolute trust, just like trust as deep as it goes kind of thing, if that makes sense.
It does.
And then the sound, I agree with you, the high five and maybe a little kiss. And then the other sound that came to mind was, hmm, like when somebody understands you and you're like, that.
Yeah, yeah, I get it. I get it.
So we've had a great introduction to the topic now, but now let's go to the dark side. Where have you noticed a lack of friendship?
Oh, um, I do lots of different reading, and one of the more recent books I read talked about how there actually is a lack of friendships amongst men. Okay, there's there's a variety of reasons why that is, and research behind it and all that. But I think that's where we see a lack of it. I mean, women are so much better at building connection with other women and having those type of friendships. Us men are not so good at it. We have to work hard at it. Part of it is because it's scary, all right? Part of it is because there's that vulnerability aspect to it, all right? Part of it is because maybe it wasn't modeled for us. I mean, there's a variety of reasons, but I think where I see lack of friendship is amongst men.
It's a great answer. And that the first thing that came to my mind was workplaces. And maybe because traditionally workplaces are male oriented, maybe there's a connection there. And I'm remembering, for instance, an old boss said to me, "You're not here to make friends." And it's this, the old fashioned way of being totally professional and business-like in the way that you do things. But what I've learned as I've got older is that what that does is it ignores a simple truth that we're all human beings. Um,
Absolutely.
and it is a tough call. And actually, I'm curious about your role because having worked in many organizations and led large teams, I have to confess that it was always a challenge finding that balance between friendship in order to engender real personal engagement versus professionalism, where you can't go too far down the friendship route in case you have to do something that
Right,
isn't particularly pleasant, right? So
right.
I'd love to hear about that from you.
Yeah, a couple different things come to mind, Alan, as you're talking about that. In the workplace, there is a certain amount of competitiveness. So I think that also again leads to the fact that it's hard to build friendships. So as an organization, especially, it always starts with the leaders, Alan. It always starts with the leaders, is they have to model what healthy relationships look like, what a healthy work friendship can look like. Definitely there are boundaries, but it always starts with the leaders modeling that. And so when it comes to that competitiveness, one of our core values is results driven. So we talk about, hey, we want to be competitive and there's always that place for friendly competitive, but it's always the we above me. A little bit of coach speak there, team, with teams is we above me. And so we're going to win, but we're going to win together. So if I'm being successful, and maybe you're struggling over here, I'm not going to withhold. I mean, that's a bad place to be in because if I'm withholding and not helping you, all right, that's actually hurting the entire organization. I'm putting me above the we. So, hey, let me come. Have you thought about this strategy? Have you thought about this strategy? So I come alongside somebody who's maybe struggling. And what happens then all of a sudden that builds a bond, using that word again, you start to build a little bit of that friendship within the organization and you start doing things together. There's an old saying that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So we want to go far, so let's do this together. Okay, so it starts with the leaders modeling that and being more things are caught than taught. So as people are watching us in the organization, well, how do these leaders interact with one another? How do they behave? And that is again, that's going to be caught throughout the entire organization. And I'm going to stop right there.
Yeah. And so let me push you a little bit further on
Okay.
this because
Okay.
what you've talked about, I think, applies to great teamwork.
Yes.
But it doesn't necessarily go into the territory of friendship. And I'm thinking of a sports team that I followed a number of years ago. So this is what you would call soccer, what I call football. And there were two guys who were attacking players in this team, and they were fantastic together. But it was disclosed that actually they didn't like each other, and yet they were such a productive power between the two of them. So that was an example of where you don't need friendship actually to be able to perform. But where is that line then? Because you've just talked about all of that stuff that you can do to engender great teamwork. Are you saying that it should not go as far as friendship? Are you saying it could go as far as friendship? Or you mentioned the word boundaries, which I love, because in some ways, in a way, it doesn't matter where you draw it, as long as you're clear what the boundary is.
Mhm. Okay, so I'm gonna lean into Patrick Lencioni in his book Five Dysfunctions of a Team, and at the bottom of that pyramid is trust. We already talked about trust.
Yeah,
So in order to have a high functioning team, you have to have that level of trust. Well, we just said that's at the core of a friendship is trust.
yeah,
So you can have friendships at the workplace as you build that vulnerability trust. That's the word that Lencioni uses is as we become more vulnerable with each other, and that doesn't mean we're giving our deepest, darkest secrets, but hey, we're willing to take risks. We're willing to say certain things that maybe historically we would withhold, but because we have this friendship, we have a higher level of trust. Yeah, it's kind of talking about friendship and maybe just two different types of friendships. I have the friendship I have with my wife, like I talked about. That friendship with my wife looks a lot different than the friendship I have with the president of our company, who's just on the other side of my wall here. We have a friendship. So I told you about our daughter getting engaged. I sent him a picture of the engagement, of my daughter's boyfriend on the knee. I sent that to him Saturday, and he told me congratulations. That's an example of friendship in the workplace.
yeah. And you've reminded me, I can't remember the lady's name. This is going back a few years ago. She's an American lady, and her work is focused in the area of friendship. And it was because I run a series of ValuesJam deep dive conversations. So these are kind of group conversations where we look at a particular topic. And I
Hmm.
was looking for somebody to just give a 5 minute introduction into the topic. And so we ended up talking. During the conversation, she shared that she categorizes her friends. So it was like so scientific because she said, "Do you know what, Alan? I've got these girlfriends that I love going out for cocktails with, but I would never dream of inviting them for dinner with other people I know." And so it kind of plays to what you were starting to get into about these different levels and
Yes.
categories of friendship.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Alan, I would actually classify you as a friend. And we've only had maybe five conversations. I mean, this is probably our fifth conversation we've had in the last 10 years, but I would still call you a friend. I don't know how you would feel about me, and I'm not looking for anything reciprocal. But the reason I would define you as a friend is what did I talk about earlier? We have a commonality. Okay.
Yeah,
We both are very passionate about what we do, and our work is centered around values and how important it is to an organization to thrive. We want to help organizations and people become the best versions of themselves. So because of that commonality, because of that bond, I would say we're friends.
yeah, it's such an interesting point because I confess that maybe before COVID, I might not have been able to agree with this very
Okay.
easily because I think my position would have been, well, if you haven't met each other, how can you be friends, kind of thing.
Hmm.
But since COVID, and here's an example, I do quite a lot of work in the kindness space, and I was invited to speak at the World Kindness Movement General Assembly, and there were some people there that I had known for 2 to 3 years, like this, online, via email, via calls. And when we met, I remember saying to one of them, one from India, "Why is it this doesn't feel weird meeting you really for the first time?" And she said, "It's because we have so much in common." And, so I don't know whether you've experienced that, but there are other people that I've met where you've maybe done this online first and then you've met in person, and they kind of feel different
Yeah.
somehow.
Yeah.
Whereas when, like, I think what you were describing, when you've got that common bond, it just feels normal.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, let's go back, a century ago, before there was internet, and there were such things as pen pals. I mean, there were people who built friendships through letters that probably only maybe met once, but they
Yeah,
would probably describe that pen pal as a friend.
yeah, for sure. And wow, you're opening something else there now. So I was talking to somebody recently about the power of receiving a handwritten note. Uh,
Oh,
yeah.
it's
Um,
very, very powerful. You're right.
yeah. So this November, so World Kindness Day happens every November, and we're kind of encouraging people. It's called Right to Be Kind, but spelt WRITE. And it's a very simple initiative. You take the time and trouble to write a handwritten note or letter to somebody that either you know or maybe you don't even know.
Mm,
Um, and several people I've mentioned it to have said, "Oh my God, the power of receiving something," and we don't receive them anymore generally because it's all kind of email. And when
mm,
something is typed, I don't know, the soul bit isn't there.
right. Then you just reminded me one of the practices that we do here in our organization is our president writes a handwritten note to every employee on their anniversary and mails it to their home. Doesn't give it to them like in their, work box here or anything. He mails it to their home with the idea that they want maybe the spouse to see it or that significant other that's in the house. It's like, oh, hey, you just got a letter from Dave, and there have been many times that employees have told Dave, our president, that how much they appreciate that. And he always personalizes it. He'll put something in that maybe has happened over the past year that he wants to acknowledge, and there is something very powerful about that. You're absolutely right.
Totally agree. Dave sounds great, and I'm reminded of like the last job I had when I was running a large team. So there were a couple of things I used to do. One was to encourage people to take their birthday as a day off, birthday cards as well, and then the millennium. When the millennium turned,
Mhm.
I like photography, so I took my camera into work that day and took a photograph of people that wanted their photograph, so that at any point in the future they could remember where they were on the first day of a new millennium. And it's personal things like that that kind of you would do for friends, but why could you not do them for colleagues? It's that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What's next? What we got next on the list here? We're going to keep going down friendship. You're going to pull another card,
We're going to
What do?
keep with friendship, and actually,
Okay.
next, there's a chance with Values Jam for you to ask your own question about friendship. So, let me
Okay.
invite you to do that now, beginning with who, what, where, when, why, or how. And it's to us, so you
Yeah.
can,
Yeah.
if you've got the answer, you can go, and if not, then I can go first.
Why don't you go first? Why don't you go first?
No, you need to ask the
Oh,
question, and then
oh,
if
I need to ask a question. I'm sorry. All right. My mind is spinning right now. Who is, I talked about who my best friend is. That's my wife. Who's your best friend?
who's my best friend? So I'm not going to follow suit with you because that would be too easy, I think. So
Okay.
I'm going to go for a guy that hired me some time ago, and we subsequently became friends. We're both of Welsh origin. We're both football fans.
Okay.
And so, whenever Wales are in a major tournament, we go to watch them, and they advanced really far in the Euros in 2016. They beat Belgium, who was one of the top teams in the tournament at that time. And yeah, time with Ian, especially around Wales, and also we're connected around politics, so we've got similar views in terms of people should be looked after, and it shouldn't just be survival of the fittest and all of that sort of stuff. Um, what else is similar? We both. He's got a very tidy car. Actually, that's another thing. And whereas I'm a bit obsessive with tidiness in the kitchen cutlery drawer, for instance. So we share a bit of that as well. Um, and we've both worked in facilities management, so we share that and enjoy the complications that sector brings. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but a lot of outsourced situations and the challenges that brings with establishing a common culture and operating platform and all the rest. So yeah, I'll go. So Ian Thomas is his name. And
Okay.
so you're going to have to think of a different one to your wife now.
Yeah, I do have one. I'm gonna, after I share that, I'm gonna ask you. One person that came to mind was a friend of mine that I've known since I was 5 years old. Okay. Met him in kindergarten class. He actually, his house was, just about half a block away from my grandmother's house. And anyway, so we met in kindergarten and we're still friends today. He
Brilliant.
was the best man in our wedding. He's, unfortunately, we don't maybe converse as often as we should, but I just had a moment with him the other day where I thought of him, and there was something, and I was able to reach out to him, and even though it had been probably a year since I last had a conversation with him, I still felt the freedom to be able to reach out to him and ask him a question and actually ask if he could do a favor for me because I had a colleague that I don't want to get into all the details, but and was gracious to reply and said, "Yes, I'd be happy to help you." So he is definitely a friend. So known him since fifth grade, and here we are still today, being able to reach out to one another. So, who's your oldest friend, Alan?
Yeah, it's a really simple question to answer.
Oh,
So this is a guy called Alan who lived across the road from me when I was from the age of 7. So his mum used to walk us to school and give us spelling tests on the way to school. Um, we then kind of went our separate. Oh, before that, we enjoyed the same sort of music.
hmm.
So Pink Floyd and Genesis and Richie Blackmore's Rainbow, Deep Purple, that sort of stuff.
Sure.
Um, then I went to university. He didn't.
Uh-huh.
He set up a gardening business. Then he ended up doing a PhD and becoming a kind of established scientist in the area of ocean pollution, specifically plastics, I think. And
Okay.
he's now at a university in Australia. So we don't see each other so often. We communicate occasionally. And if he lets me know when he's over, like we met about probably 5 years ago. And what was really wonderful about that conversation was we discovered things about each other that we had both either not known or forgotten. And it was by
Yeah.
having the conversation that you found this stuff out, which was great.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so so we've been very personal and specific, and now I want to go big. So
All right, let's go
how
big.
could more friendship improve the world?
Oh, uh, friendship could improve the world because what friendship is, it's connecting with another human. All right, it's humans connecting with humans, and it's taking down all the barriers and the walls. We used this word earlier, judgmental. All of a sudden, we begin to have a different perspective about the other person, and even though they might believe something different, there's still something that will always connect one person to another. So let's celebrate and connect on those things that we do have in common and the things that maybe we disagree on. Okay, well, now because we have this connection and I see you as another human being, a friend, yeah, because Alan, I'm sure you and I probably disagree on some things, but I'm always going to bring back to what is the thing that Alan and I do agree on and how can we celebrate that and how can we kind of rally around that and then how can we use that to keep building our relationship and not use the things that we don't believe in the same and don't let those things become divisive. Look for the things that can bring us together. So if more people did that, oh, we'd have a better world.
Yeah, totally agree, Todd. And I think there's something, so this kind of goes back to when we were talking and looking at organizations.
Mhm.
Um, and what I'm thinking about is how, at the beginning, when people are together, there tend to be more human relationships. And then things become systematized and processes are introduced.
Mm.
And whether intentionally or not, it seems to me that either in an organizational context or a societal context, even the world, the human bit is kind of dumbed down and reduced, and more focus is placed on process and governance, all of this sort of stuff. And so you end up almost forcing the humanness out of us. And that seems not to work very well.
Mhm. You're right. So as an organization, and then as an individual, you have to work at it. You have to be intentional because, I mean, it's entropy. I mean, we're in this natural state of moving towards decay. All right. So we have to pivot and we have to be intentional as an individual as well as an organization to create moments of building relationship. So in the workplace, a very common way that people do that is actually over a meal, okay, over
Absolutely.
food. And there was a study, and I don't know who to give credit to. I heard this in a message a while back, where this person they studied the fire departments in the city of Boston, Massachusetts. And
Mm-hmm.
what they studied was those firefighters that had lunch together versus the firefighters that maybe didn't do it as frequently. But there was a direct correlation that those firefighters that had more meals together, frequency, those fire departments had less accidents. They had less
Oh,
incidents on the job where their peers got hurt because they just had this bond. They were looking out for each other and everything like that. So you can see the benefit of coming together and building that. But I think that's something that organizations can, and it's something we do. So every quarter we bring the entire organization together and we have lunch together. It's also a time, yes, to talk about, hey, what's going on, this, that, the other thing. But where the magic really happens is after we're done with our speeches and our presentation is the people around the table just connecting and over food. So yeah, that's what I got to say about that.
yeah, I'm with you. And next week I'm running a series of working sessions, and it's a 31 practices project actually. So we're going to be doing the co-creation working sessions, and I explained that they work best when there are different hierarchical levels and different functions, departments or sections, because that's how you get the best conversations. And interestingly, I remember so a lady who was in the cleaning department, pretty junior, and sitting at the same table as the finance director. And what was interesting is that she seemed to have a lot more life experience to draw on to contribute in this session than the finance director did. And at the time, I remember thinking, well, that's a surprise, isn't it? But then when I thought it through, and I'm going to kind of stereotype now, so forgive it just to make a point. But imagine the guy who's the finance director, probably from a privileged background, maybe paid for education, maybe helped on their way with parents' connections, maybe fast tracked because of that, and ends up in a senior role. And then the other person who maybe was born in a different country, maybe had to make a choice to come to a new country, maybe didn't speak the language, maybe was holding down three jobs to put food on the table at home and stuff like this. So it's really not surprising that somebody like that could perhaps bring more to the table in life experience. And yet we tend not to give that as much credit as perhaps we should.
Well said. Well said. All right. So where we're at on our clock. Okay, I just wanted to be obviously aware of that. So as I think about friendship, Alan, the question I have to you, do you have a person in your life that you have kind of got disconnected with and that you miss and that you would like to rebuild a friendship with?
Oh, good question. And yeah, so I was talking about this the other day. Um, so when I passed a big birthday, I decided to identify 60 people that had been the most influential people in my life, and that I would like to meet with them, take a photograph of them, reminisce, and write some stories, and then put that in a book. So that was the idea. I started it, then COVID arrived, and so it's still unfinished. But anyway, this particular individual was my roommate at university, and we did things like played 49 games straight of table tennis, on a Wednesday afternoon, this sort of thing. Got totally drunk in the bar, and real strong friendship. We then both went into the hospitality sector and went our separate ways. He then moved to Spain and kind of bought a place that they let out for bedrooms, and we lost touch. So I reached out to him and said, I'd love you to be in my book because you're one of the 60 people, da da da. His response was, well, we weren't exactly best friends for very long, were we? And so I don't really think it's a good idea for me to be in your book.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And yeah, that was my initial reaction. But then I explained to him that it wasn't really his choice because I viewed our friendship as one of the most important things in my life, and it was the book about my life. So if he wasn't willing to do the photograph bit, I'd have to use one that I had from when we were together at university. And I didn't hear from him anymore. So that's my story. Do you want to beat that?
Yeah, you gave me inspiration. I'm knocking on the door of a milestone birthday that has a 6 and a 0 in it as well, Alan, and you're kind of inspiring me. And so as I went through my mind real quick, and it's interesting, I thought of a college roommate, and then you start talking about a college roommate. Uh, there's a gentleman I roomed with for just one semester, and we connected. We did a lot of things together, and he was very influential in my life because he came from a different culture, and so he helped open up my eyes to just different things that I had never been exposed to before, and I just really appreciated that about him and our friendship. I attempted to connect with him a few years ago. We did get together for coffee, and I tried to re-engage, but it we just met that one time. And so it wasn't reciprocated. But to your point, it doesn't change the fact of that I would still call him a friend because of his impact in my life at that time.
Yeah. And how would you feel about giving that another go?
Oh, I mean, I've thought about it. You're absolutely right. I mean, we're only like an hour away from one another. It's very easy for us to get coffee. So, are you rightly challenging me, Alan,
Well,
to give it another go?
this this is Todd. This is such a brilliant segue into this is the wrap-up question now for our
Oh,
session, right?
okay.
And it is this: what are you encouraged to do differently about friendship as a result of this conversation?
You started off the episode saying that basically you don't believe in coincidences, that kind of things happen for a reason. And so that closing question, what has led up to that closing question, I don't think is a coincidence. And so my takeaway from this is to reach out to my friend and try to reconnect.
Brilliant. And mine is you mentioned the Boston Meals Together Firemen study.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not aware of that, so I'm going to find it and read up on it. And this is, yeah, it's interesting because it's come up in our conversation. But what's more interesting for me is kind of the professional context because for Values Jam, I believe that it's going to take a little bit of a while to explain this, but basically, I believe that COVID and what came afterwards in terms of more distributed working has prevented us from building such strong relationships as we used to when everybody was together more. Now, here's the thing. Before, when it happened, the organization was the real beneficiary. Because of the relationships, there was greater productivity and greater teamwork and greater collaboration. Now, without everybody being together, I believe that that has reduced. The relationships have diluted. As such, collaboration and productivity will necessarily have dropped. But the thing is that leaders, I don't believe, have realized that it's their responsibility to fill that vacuum with something else to create the relationships between people. And Values Jam is one way you can do that. So, my kind of sweet spot for an organization is somebody who would say, we love this, and we're going to ask everybody to have one Values Jam every fortnight with somebody in their department, in their location, in a different department, in a different location. And imagine the bonding that could happen across the organization. So I'm going to read up about this paper to see if it can help me develop that proposition.
Oh, sounds good. Sounds good. Wow, Alan, I have been blessed by you in this time, and I'm so grateful that you reached out and asked for me to be a guest. It was wonderful.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you, my friend. I see what you did there.
All right, you take care.